Welcome everyone, my name is Capcan and this is my builds presentation, my build guide for Purifying Flame on the Witch on Elementalist, which has something close to 16 million DPS, and it cost me near 10 divines to get it all together, which is kinda low, but it has some flaws nonetheless. It's not a boss killing build by any means, it's mostly a map farmer that can farm maps pretty easily, pretty fast. If you like Purifying Flame as a skill, then it's definitely can be a good thing for you to test out. You can definitely try to play this build on SSF, because I've started this character on solo self-found, then migrated to trade, bolstered it up with different trading items, and then it became this the damage of the build became way higher than it was in SSF. But anyways, Purifying Flame as a skill by itself can be played pretty easily in SSF. It can be pretty easily played in trade with minimal investments. You don't really need any of the stuff that is going to be presented on this character by itself in order to comfortably farm tier 16s without any problems. With bosses it's gonna have some problems, but still you can go quite comfortably against tutorial versions of Exile and all that stuff. You can defeat Guardians without problems, even without this 16 million DPS, without this 10 divines in the character. What I've been doing on SSF was closer to 2 million DPS, and it's after 30, maybe something close to 40 hours of play on the character after I've transferred. To be honest, the defensives of the character are suffered a bit for way higher DPS, and this is the biggest problem why this character is not a boss killer, because of the defenses of the character. The character is quite a it's quite a glass cannon. You're getting hit quite hard with some, especially dot damage can get you very fast. We do have some block chance, we do have some spell block, a little bit of spell suppression, and some other ways to live through the incoming damage. We do have life leech, but it's not too much. And in order for you to have this much damage on Purifying Flame, you definitely need to sacrifice your defenses, at least with setup as it is presented to you with my character. There are probably way better choices and some other builds that you can manage with Purifying Flame, but this one in particular was more than fine for me. For me whenever I was just playing this character and enjoying the skill. It's not a meta skill by any means. And yeah, I guess now we can go to the character. I'll show you PoB quite fast. PoB of this character. So this is the character. It's Elementalist, as you can see. It has 16 point something million DPS. It's against Pinnacle boss, and it's only with things that are present on the character, and there's a bunch of different ailments that we can get on our enemies. There's a bunch of different mechanics. You can definitely go with way less damage, something probably closer to 8 million DPS, and get way higher defenses, and may even try some boss killing. But with this current setup, it is comfortable to play through maps. It is very fast. It has very good AoE, as you've probably seen on the footage. But it's definitely, there are some bosses. So for example, any Guardians you can one-shot pretty easily without going through any phases, which means that they can't even hit you that much. You still may occasionally die on them, but mostly you will be fine. So tier 16s, Guardians, if you want to farm them, it's more than easy with this character, and you should be more than fine. Shaper itself with quite caution timing for his beam is more than easy. But the Exarch, on Exarch you have problems with balls. If you can dodge them quite easily, or you may use Frostwall, then Exarch is more than easy for you to kill. And the other one, The Eldritch Wrath one is even easier, and you saw the I'll probably put the footage of that in the video as well. You can defeat it quite easy, but Uber Elder and most of the Ubers, Cyrus is just it's an impossible task on this particular character. Thanks to all the degen and all the burst damage, this character does not really hold that well to burst damage by any means. So there are particular places that you can farm, particular places that you probably don't really, but be better to stay away from them. But this is the character. And I was basically trying to get as much damage out of Purifying Flame as possible in quite medium budget. I've get all this together in something like 1 or 2 days after I've migrated to trade. So this is the numbers on the character. Now let's go to the game itself and look at the character itself, what it has in terms of items, and each item I will try to price it as I remember. And let's start from the talent tree first. So talent tree first. So everything that goes with fire damage, with cast speed, fire damage, maximum life. But to be honest, I didn't get too much maximum life. It's level 92 character only, so you have plenty more room to play. I didn't place too much tattoos, only 4 of them, and it's all that's the ones that I've got in SSF. So you can optimize here as well. There is plenty in free intelligence that available for you to go with. And again, it's level 92, so you can go higher levels, more talent points, do some additional stuff. So we need fire damage as much as possible. I'm getting some AoE nodes that are pretty cool as well. Purifying Flame with big AoE looks hella amazing. We do need additional physical damage conversion because Purifying Flame converts only 50%. Mana reservation efficiency, quite obvious. Some additional energy shield as well we need because we are using Eldritch Battery, and our skill costs a lot, 119 mana, and we do have quite high cast speed, which means that with this character in particular, you do need some energy shield increases. You do need some energy shield on your character, on your items, at least somewhere, like on this shield, on the garb itself. Eye of Malice will give you a bunch. And then you need some healthy balance between probably 800, 700 plus energy shield, and then you can cover up everything with energy shield recharge rate. Energy shield leech doesn't really work well because it's gonna be way too low for you to even consider it taking, maybe at first, but the energy shield recharge rate after you have like 700, 800, if you have at least some points or some energy shield recharge rate on items, maybe like I have here, then you'll be more than fine, and energy shield will be constantly up, and you will have enough energy shield for your divine blessing zealotry. You will have your arcanist brand with 2 curses will trigger curses constantly, and it will eat a bunch of your energy shield as well. So combined, you still will be fine with enough recharge rate, or something closer to like 800 energy shield. More is more comfortable. Less than 500, I'd say that you will run out quite fast, and no amount of energy shield recharge rate can help you, especially if you're on 6 link already. If you're on 5 link, if you're on 4 link, maybe you can use gloves with +2 levels of at first. That's what I was using in SSF. You can use your gloves with plus levels to AoE gems, and it's going to be a pseudo 5 link, especially if you can have there some modifiers from like shaper or stuff with faster casting or anything like that. It can be like pseudo 5 to 6 link, but you can definitely use that, or some other mods here. Or maybe on helmet as well, if you're not gonna use Eye of Malice for the starters. There are some like elemental more and stuff, and it's gonna be easier on your energy shield cost. This way you don't need as much energy shield, so whenever you don't have as much mana multipliers to the skill itself, it's going to be easier on your energy shield, and you don't need as much from the items. Yeah, so then we're going for Elemental Overload. It's not a crit build, but we crit a bit, so we do have like 8 or 10% crit chance, especially with this item that you don't really need half of the modifiers on this item. I've bought it for 6 divines. And you don't really need plus crit, and so frenzy charges are very, very good. Can apply additional curse, saves us 6 talent points, very, very good, and maximum life. That's it, what it gives. +1 to level of all Val skill gems doesn't give us anything, because we're not really using any Val skills except for Val Molten Shell. So basically the base Sacrificial Garb itself, we don't really need it. We don't really need plus to crit. So yeah, I was buying this item just for me to have the item for my future builds. That's why I've decided to spend a bit more. So anyways, with this costing 6.5 divines, I've still spent 10 divines on everything, which in my opinion is quite low, especially with how the prices are now later down in the league. But you can probably live through with like 3 to 4 divines instead of 6 in here, because you don't really need some mods on this one, and you can get way better stats because it has +5 to armor. It has like and increased stun and block recovery, so there are still places for you to optimize and for you to get way higher armor based item. White sockets can alleviate problem of blue socketing it and stuff. There is just a bunch of, so it's not an optimized build in like its maximum potential, but it's still, at least in my opinion, kinda okay build in that point. So yeah, here we are going for the jewels. I'm gonna take a bit after that, so a bit more AoE, more armor plus energy shield. And yeah, Templar nodes are very good. We don't have many increased armor spots on our talent tree, which why we value these talents in particular very, very highly. More elemental damage and a bit of life. See here, a bit of spell block and mana reservation efficiency. Very, very conventional place. We do use 2 heralds, and we buff the hell out of our Herald of Ash and Discord Artisan, and these both things are very good in terms of DPS. You can watch it on PoB. They give us a lot of damage, so these 3 items, these 3 talents are very good. Herald of Ash just in general gives us a bunch of damage because it grants us increased fire damage and more spell fire damage. It is very powerful, and it gives us additional clear, but the buff itself it's kind of on pair with auras that are 50% mana reservation efficiency. Here we are going for some spell suppression, more -2 resistances. We are taking the chill, so we are chilling. We do have like, I do have here some flat cold damage. You can get it anywhere. You can get it on abyssal jewels. You can get it on regular jewelry if you don't want to use circles of anguish. You can maybe get it somewhere else as well, just like a craft or something. And with any cold damage, we are gonna chill enemies by at least 10%. So we're not taking this node in, we're not taking Shaper of Winter. We're going for Bastion of Elements for at least more survivability. And here we are getting these 3 talent nodes. We are permanently increase enemies damage taking by 1% every second they've been chilled. So the longer you're in fight, the more damage you're gonna deal to enemies. And we are chilling 100% with things, and we're using hypothermia this way. So yeah, hypothermia is very good because you can't really use controlled destruction because you still want some kind of a high crit strike chance for early overload. You can't use elemental like the thing that disables your elemental ailments, because we shock, we ignite, we get different buffs from all that stuff. And that's why hypothermia is very, very good, and with this 100% chilling enemies, it is very convenient. It is very cool. And then we are going for 1 cluster jewel, big cluster jewel that is with fire damage. You can get, if you don't want to use, probably I need to touch it a bit later, but still gonna do it here. How do we get leech? There's a bunch of different places where you can get leech nowadays. It can be from even Timeless Jewel. It can be from mod on your rings if you are lucky enough, or if you don't want to use Circle of Anguish again, but it gives you a bunch of damage. You can get it somewhere else. You can get as a Doriani's Lesson talent, big talent on your large cluster jewel with either fire damage or elemental damage. Fire damage is a bit better because it has 2% increased fire damage on itself. We're not really dealing any other damage rather than fire, so as you can see here, it's big fire, and then this like what, 12 to 20, 26, so it's 100 cold damage just for our chills to go. Otherwise we utilize fire damage way more, so you don't really need to spread yourself on elemental damage. Fire is more than fine. Yeah, and if you don't really have the modifier on Watcher's Eye for you or fire damage leeches as life while you are affected by anger, as I do have, you can get here more damage with anger, which, yeah, you can prioritize that over the fire leech. Then you can get Doriani's Lesson here instead of Sadist, or probably better Smoking Remains, because Sadist is very, very good for us. Yeah, you can get here on the fire damage or early large cluster jewels, you can get there your life leech. And life leech is very, very handy because we don't have high regeneration. We do stay on consecrated ground quite often, which means that we have like something 5, 6, 7% of regen of our life. You may have some flat regen on your items, on your rare ones, as I do have here 50, but it's not much. It's still like 100, 200, 300 health maximum, and life leech even with this amount of life is going to be like 500, 600, which is for the build with this damage. Whenever everything dies from one shots, it's more than fine, and you're gonna be okay. Yeah, then you can use here. So basically, uncompromising. If you want to use all the reservation skills that I'm using, then you need to have a mana reservation efficiency 6% to talent pointer and a determination uncompromising talent on it. It's not too pricey. Maybe something I can remember 30, 40 chaos. You don't really need it. You can just disqualify your Herald of Purity. Where is it? Yeah. If you get your Herald of Purity out of the way, you don't really need this, and you probably don't really need some other mana reservation efficiency places, because your mana will be in a way healthier spot, and we're reserving 100% almost, so it's like 3 mana, so we don't really need to have any spare mana left. But yeah, this one is if you want to use Herald of Purity, or you may not want to use a Tempest Shield. If you don't want to use Tempest Shield, you don't need additional spell block and immunity to shock, which, to be honest, better get rid of Herald of Purity rather than Tempest Shield. Herald of Purity gives you a bunch of damage, but you don't really need to have so much damage for map clearing at all. And your spell block will help you, immunity to shock will help you with a bunch of different mods, and it will just help you in terms of survivability, because you can get one shot with this build quite often. It's not like you will constantly do that, but it is a probability, and you probably... So yeah, basically, if you want to deviate from my build, deviate in more of a defense points rather than offense ones. So instead of this 3-pointer here, you can get yourself a good chunky armor, small cluster jewel that gives you like 15%, and then 30% with some other goodies. Any armor talent that gives you 30% of armor plus something will be more than great in here. One that stands out most, Battle Hardened. It gives you fizz damage, which increases your damage of Purifying Flame very, very well. It is kind of like probably 28% elemental damage, so it's an equivalent to that, so it's very good, and it gives you 30% of armor, and it gives you 30% of evasion rating. If you want to again get more defenses rather than offenses, then get rid of not anger. Oh yeah, but we do have many other things. You can get your Herald of Purity out, and maybe your Tempest Shield out, and get Grace instead, and then you will have evasion rating, and then maybe instead of Herald of Ash you can get Tempest Shield and then get rid of Circles of Anguish, but this way you will lose probably more than half of your damage. If you do all that, then half of your damage is gone, which is still like 7-8 million will be more than fine for you to farm maps, but you will have additional evasion, and you will have 2 spare slots for rings where you can get either additional damage otherwise or more defenses, because these rings are not very good in terms of anything rather than getting you damage. They give you a bunch of damage, very, very high amounts of damage, to be honest. But yeah, serve none other purposes rather than that. Some fire resistance, wow, thanks, and 20 to strength again. Okay, so, and the second one was Megalomaniac, which is, to be honest, was like 15 chaos. With these stats, it's Burden Projection, which gives you spell damage, then Battle Hardened, which gives you armor and fist damage, and Cry Wolf that I don't use. So it's a 3-pointer, which can be successfully just thrown away, and you can place here your armor, small cluster jewel, and it will be a bit more defenses, a little bit less damage, because you wouldn't have this 30% spell damage, you will have 30% armor instead, which again depends on your preferences. Yeah, so we don't want to be AFK probably. And this is it when it comes to the talents mostly. Yeah, you can watch over them in PoB, but there's nothing special really. We are using, of course, we're going for Heart of Destruction, we're going for Convergence. AoE that it gives is very good when you clear maps, and damage of course is pretty well as well. Mastermind of Discord, so we are focusing on minus resistances to enemies. Of course we are an Elementalist. Then Bastion of Elements for at least some survivability against at least elemental damage, and Shaper of Storms for shocks. To be honest, Shaper of Storms is one of the like kind of weakest in here, but shocks are good, and you don't really have anything other useful that you could have taken. And by the way, yeah, you can like all the talents from the other. You can get your jewels that gives you ascendancy talent from other ascendancies, but to be honest, there are nothing too good that you can utilize better than your Watcher's Eye or something else that is already slotted in jewel slots. Okay, now for the jewels. So first one is Watcher's Eye with mods for anger, some additional physical damage as extra fire damage while affected by anger. It's the best mod for your Watcher's Eye. You probably want to have it, and otherwise, yeah, fire damage leached. Just with my setup, this is where I've got my life leech, but you can get it in many other places as well. So you can get some extra flat armor from Determination. We're using like 3 auras, some zealotry as well. Zealotry mods will be just as useful as anger damage mods, because we are using zealotry as our divine blessing stuff, and they are equal in numbers, with the exception of gain percentage of physical damage as extra fire. This one is the most powerful, and it's kind of close to doubling the effect of any other damage mod increases multipliers that you can get on Watcher's Eye. Yeah, and then we are getting the Lethal Pride with Akoya. Something between 13,500 and 14,000 is very, very good for this in particular, because it gives you 2 points of double damage. So here it's 5% to deal double damage, and here is 5% to deal double damage. And 10% chance to deal double damage is a very, very massive multiplier for us. Otherwise, it gives us a bunch of strength, which is definitely very good for us too, for our attributes and for our Magnate. The Magnate gives us a chance to deal double damage, 10%, which is, again, it's not the best choice in this particular place. You can get health here. You can get your Abyssal Jewel here that will give you your flat cold damage, and you don't need to find this synthesized prefix of on Circle of Anguish, which costs something closer to like 40k. Yeah, so this in particular I've bought for 50 chaos, and regular Circle of Anguish with these two modifiers on it can cost 20 or 15 chaos. And I've bought them 1 day ago, so the prices are current. So yeah, again, you can get not magnate, and that way you don't need to stack a bit of additional strength in order for you to have 200, and I have way over 200. But it's, again, still the Lethal Pride itself. Either you're using Magnate or not using Magnate will be a very good addition here, because it gives you a bunch of strength, it gives you again more strength, and these two talents as well: reduced damage from extra damage from crit strikes, 20%, which is pretty nice in terms of defenses as well, and you don't really need Chainbreaker at all. So yeah, it's just for you to have some additional things. You probably can't really find better jewel to place in here, and this one cost again something close to 30 chaoses, maybe 25, 30. So most of the items cost less than 40, 30 chaos, or something close to it, if I would consider this a pricey item. So this build is definitely, at least in my vision, especially with one invitation, one Screaming, or so Eldritch Exarch, or the other one, with one invitation costing 1 divine currently, you can gear this character very, very easy and very, very fast just by farming tier 16s with lower budget version. Yeah, and I'm gonna run through all the parts that you can lower the budget in. Okay, so this was our thing. Now for Pantheon, Soulbrine King, Permastand, we don't have any stun avoidance or stuff like that, so we need it, and we do have immunity to freeze this way as well, and I'm using Soul of Abreth just because any dot gives us big pain in the ass, and here we do have Unaffected by Burning Ground, which is very good if you're farming your Eldritch Exarch maps with the influence and stuff, and less duration on Ignite is definitely very good too. You can get rid of your bleeding and corrupted blood with your flask, and the only dot damage that is left is chaos damage. But it's it's less of a thing rather than Burning Ground that is quite constant here. Okay, so now for the items. Or for the skill gems probably first. So with Purifying Flame, as you can see here, it's quite high level, and to be honest, this level 21 gem with 20% quality, that is kind of useless, to be honest. The quality itself, you can get an alternative qualityed one that gives you additional damage taken by enemies that they are on your consecrated ground, but it costs probably like 20 to 30 to 40 chaos more. So this gem in particular cost me 20 chaos. I saw there were some that cost 40, but level 21 with 20% quality cost me 20 chaos, and level 20 costs like 3 or 4 chaos. So your level 20 Purifying Flame is more than fine, and you don't really need quality on it. Then Hypothermia, it's just level 20. Hypothermia is good because we're chilling enemies, and it's basically a 30% multiplier. Then Intensify is definitely your choice in here. We don't really have, like, again, with with Control Destruction and Elemental Focus being out of the way, we do have here lesser damage multipliers like Energy Shield, Leech, like but yeah, Combustion we already use here. So yeah, there are some Cruelty you can use as well, especially if you don't have enough good colored sockets. But Intensify is very, very good. Intensify gives you a bigger AoE whenever you're clearing, and whenever you're hitting one target, it ramps your damage very, very high. Yeah, and it's just good. It doesn't have any downsides with your skill in particular at all. It's just you benefit from it very pleasantly. Then combustion is pretty good as well. Additional chance to ignite means that we apply ignites more often. We do have something like 35% chance, which means that our sadist works and we do have some increases to damage, but otherwise than that we do have more fire damage, and we do have additional minus to fire resistances by enemies, which is again very substantial with how we lower enemies resistances in general. It's the whole premise of the build. Then spell echo support, again level 20 with some quality. Without quality, quality gives you 7% increased spell damage, and it costs, again, even with this quality, it costs something like 8 chaos. And awakened added fire damage. So this one was very good. This one cost me only 50 chaos, when all the other awakened gems cost something like 2 to 3 divines, and you don't really need awakened added fire damage. But the good thing here is your regular added fire damage gives you 39% increase, so 39% of fizz damage as extra fire. Awakened added fire damage level 1 gives you 40%, and it costs something like 5 or 10 chaos. So awakened version that is just not leveled up gives you almost the same bonus that your regular added fire damage level 20 gives you. And whenever you will level it up, it will gain the +1 to level of supported gems, of supported physical skill gems. And our Purifying Flame is of course a physical spell gem. So you can buy it for cheap, level up yourself, or you can buy it still for cheap, level 5 with some additional quality, still being under 50 or 60 chaos in here. But again, you don't really need to. But plus this +1 to level is a massive damage increase. So this one is one of the things that you probably need to get first, especially the level 1 version, and then level up yourself, get the all the additional goods, and yeah. Okay, so that's when it comes to our main 6 link. Then we are using Flame Dash as a blink. You can use Ice Blink as well, which is many people prefer more. Shield charge with faster attacks for your and it's going to be, oh wait a second, yeah, it's going to be, oh you probably saw that, it's going to be pretty fast. We do have Scepter with good attack speed per second. If it's slower, it's going to be a bit slower, but it's still, you're gonna be traveling pretty fast. Tempest Shield is one of our things that we're reserving our mana. Herald of Purity is another one, gives us a bunch of damage as well. Then we're using Arcanist Brand with Ele Weakness and Flammability. Just -2 resistances, applies automatically, pops up. You need to use it once on heavily healthed and defended targets. Then Molten Shell with cast when damage taken, nothing special. Val version will give you additional button. To be honest, I forget to use it quite often. Defiance Banner is one of the, it costs very small reservation. It gives you like very small reservation fee, but it has a very powerful increase to armor that we need because we don't have much increased armor places to get this thing from. And reduction to crit strike, incoming crit strike damage as well. Okay, so our main reservation things. If you want a setup like mine, then you definitely need all the talents and the cluster jewel, small one that I've said, with determination or any other, or maybe anger. I don't know if that exists, to be honest, that increases mana reservation of anger to 50%. But anyways, you need some additional mana reservation stuff. And you need Enlighten level 3. Enlighten level 3 cost me 20 chaos or 25. So it's nothing crazy. If you don't want to get it, again, I can understand that. Just turn your Herald of Purity off. So here we have Herald of Ash that gives us ton of damage, anger that gives us ton of damage and that our Watcher's Eye is tied to, and determination that gives us at least some physical damage mitigation, and that is essential for our build to work. Without it you will die even more, and it's quite a miserable thing to do. That's for this one. And then Zealotry as Divine Blessing Inspiration. You can get here haste. You can get here Val Haste. For Val Haste, you will need to use even one additional keybind, which is going to be annoying. But there's a big but. If you want to get hatred, you need more dexterity. I am at quite low dexterity, 106, and I do have some items and gems have reduced attribute requirements, which gives it a bit of more, so I can use my hypothermia level 20 with not 111 but 106 dexterity. If you want to get haste, you will have to have 150 dexterity. And level 10, level 9 haste that will be usable on this build will give you less damage than Zealotry. Combined with Val haste, it will give you more, something like 30-40% more than Zealotry by itself, but it's with Val haste. So you need your souls, and only then when you combine them both, they're better than Zealotry. Zealotry itself is better than just haste itself. But it doesn't give you movement speed, so your shield charge will be slower. And haste gives you more increased cast speed, which makes your Purifying Flame cost even more in terms of mana spent per second or energy shield spent per second, which is kinda as well. So now let's go for the items. Okay, our body armor is first and foremost here to give us frenzy charges whenever we need them on bosses. We don't really need them on kill, so if you have anywhere else mod to generate frenzy charges on kill, it will help you sometimes with maybe some like rare mobs, or especially if you're farming maps. But I was getting this armor first, and I was thinking about farming bosses as well, which now I understand that this build is not really capable of, so you can't even drop this to gain frenzy charges at all, to be honest. It wouldn't be a big reason. The only thing that you really need here is you can apply an additional curse. The additional curse is a very big one. It gives us, again, 6 or 7 free talent points. If you don't want to get it, again, you still can use ally weakness and flammability combined with taking the Whispers of Doom. It's here, it's not very far away. You can get it, but you will have to sacrifice your damage otherwise. If you're playing on SSF, or if you're playing on even smaller budget, you can still play with a regular 6 link item. This item in particular is one of the biggest spendings of the build. It will cost you either 3 divines if it's without an additional spell crit, if it's not on a sacrificial garb. You can definitely find some bases like that with just an additional curse and frenzy charge. But if you drop frenzy charges, it probably will cost less. Something like 2 divines. Maybe there are not. People are crafting this one like this, so they are crafting with spell crit, spell crit combined with curse and with frenzy charge generation. I don't know how much it will cost without frenzy charge generation, for example, but I assume it should be smaller, but there may not be as many items like that. But again, you can drop that, and you can drop additional curse as well, and this and just get a very good high armor and energy shield hybrid base. Stuff it full with more armor, with increased armor and increased life and physical damage reduction, and that chest piece will probably be even better than this one in terms of defenses for your character for sure. It will cost you 10 chaos, and your build will ramp up through the tier 16s without any problem. Anything here doesn't really give you any unique things for the character that your character can't work without. Okay, now then for the weapons probably first. So the scepter here is just a very big damage statistic. It gives us a bunch of percentage spell damage or spell damage element, so increases to damage, very big fat flat fire damage to spells, pretty nice additional cast speed. I would recommend you to get as highest cast speed as possible, because you will feel playing comfortably with Purifying Flame and Spell Echo with high cast speed, you wouldn't feel comfortable without high cast speed. That's why we're taking this node of talents. If you can squeeze it somewhere else, it's good. If you don't want to take Circle of Anguish or maybe some other, yeah, if you can find ways. To be honest, when I was playing on SSF, I didn't have Replica Dragon's Fang's Flight with Purifying Flame levels. I was using the amulet that gives you movement speed, attack speed, and cast speed, and it worked fine. And the build itself felt even more comfortable. To be honest, yeah, and again, I've downgraded my build's defenses whenever I was playing SSF, and to be honest, I quite regret it a bit. Because bosses were harsher than they were on SSF, even though I have 16 times the damage. So yeah, here just cast speed and +1 to level of either all fire or all physical spell skill gems. Fire one is way cheaper to get with all the good other modifiers. 5% chance to deal double damage. It was just the thing that I had here. This item in particular had 2 suffixes open that left. I've crafted chance to deal damage and exalted just an intelligence. You can't really get any good increases to your crafted increases to your fire damage. It's like 17%. It's bad, and 5% chance to deal double damage will be way better than that. That's why it's here. Then with our shield. With shield there was a big dilemma. I was using Dawnbreaker. Dawnbreaker felt very, very good, especially when I was playing SSF, and I even had a good cool corrupt on it with 5% additional spell block and +2 to level of AoE spell gems, and my aura setup was in my Dawnbreaker. Dawnbreaker converts your percentage of your incoming physical damage as fire damage and some elemental damages as well, which again we need reductions to physical damage taking as much as possible. It has very high block chance, it has very high armor count, which is very good because we don't have too much armor in general at all. Even with Flask app it's like 30,000. It's miserable. That's why this one in particular, it was a big do I want more damage, do I want more, I went for more damage. But I strongly recommend you to feel the build for yourself and to get in here either some rare shield with high armor, high percentage phys damage reduction, high life, and maybe some flat damage recovered when you block, or yeah, any other ways of defending yourself that can be present on the shield. It's gonna be very good. Or just get a Dawnbreaker. Dawnbreaker will just be more than fine. It is cheap. You can farm it in SSF very easily, and it gives you more than enough armor and block and all the defenses and conversions of phys damage. It's just very good, and it looks cool. Okay, so yeah, this is the shield. The shield itself has pretty high increased damage. It's 50%. It has some flat region, which was good, but the main thing that I was looking for was +1 to level of all either physical skill spell gems or fire skill spell gems, percentage to fire damage or to spell damage increases, and some resistances, because I needed to cover the resistances with many, as you can see here, I have no resistances on my chest piece that I could have had, because I don't really need many mods from here. Especially if you're map farming. I don't have any resistances on, I do have like some fire res, but it is quite low. With the gloves, it was, I'm gonna take on the gloves a bit further down, but the gloves themselves I've got for the, I've bought them with inflict fire exposure and in nerve in first place, and after that unnerve, to be honest, was the mod that I was looking for, and then I was trying to craft it, and you can get some additional damage from converting the rest of your phys damage, because 10% of your phys damage remains unconverted to fire, and it has some problems because you can die to phys reflect. Because of that, because you cannot take reflected elemental damage, not phys damage, and if there's phys reflect damage present on maps, You probably want to convert all the rest of the damage to fire, and you lose some DPS. Not too much, to be honest, so you can play without this mod in particular. And I wanted to get a chance to unnerve. To be honest, and you don't need fire exposure on hit, because we do have Eye of Malice, which has chance to inflict fire exposure on hit, and with our hit rate, you will have your fire exposure quite constant. So this one in particular, all the gloves themselves, to be honest, it's quite a massive flop from my side. And yeah, because I don't have many resistances on other gear, I couldn't afford to get more health here. I should have got more resistances. This one, and by the way, yeah, so after the body armor, Scepter probably costs something like 70 to 80 KSs, and the shield cost close to 60 KS. These are the most one of the most pricey items that I have on the build in general. Yeah, so now let's go for the Now let's probably go for the gloves. So on the gloves, we do have increased energy shield recharge rate, which is very, very comfy. You want it, yeah, and I was getting these before I've got my shield that has 100% energy shield on it. My energy shield was way lower. It was something closer to 800, and it has problems without, and I didn't have my boots that have energy shield recharge rate. And I didn't have my talent that has energy shield recharge rate. That is anointed, and it's completely useless. You can anoint any other talent, especially there's, yeah, I'm gonna go for that in a bit. So basically, you don't really need energy shield recharge rate here. You don't need energy shield from the gloves themselves, because it's quite low in general. You can get just 200 of energy shield here. You can get way higher energy shield from boots. Or you can get higher energy shield from your chest piece. That is, in my case, quite useless. It's 90. It doesn't give you much armor because 400 is quite low, and it doesn't give you a bunch of energy shield either. So basically, if this was just a hybrid base with armor and energy shield, and it had some good mods on it for it, then I wouldn't even need these gloves in general at all for my energy shield, and energy shield recharge rate wouldn't be needed here as well. And otherwise it has some maximum life and fizz damage converted to fire. The reason why we do have these gloves in particular, because chance to unnerve enemies, which is pretty nice damage increase, I'm not gonna lie, was the cheapest on them, and it was like something 10 chaos. It was, they were like, there was nothing on them. I've crafted them with essences. Yeah, and that's why I've got them. And you don't need inflict fire exposure. You can get some better, some really useful thing here in terms of mods. Yeah, but if you are not using Eye of Malice, you prefer some other helmet, then this modifier is definitely needed for you. So inflict fire exposure on hit, you definitely need it if you don't want to use Eye of Malice, which I wouldn't know why would you prefer to not use. Okay, so now the physical damage to conversion to fire, I've already talked about why we do have it here. Then when it comes to our, yeah, let's go for more. One of the cornerstone items, at least in my opinion, is Replica Dragonfang's Flight here. It's definitely just a miracle of an item. It gives you +3 to level of all Purifying Flame gems. It is, so this mod in particular, +3 to level, there can be any active spell gem, and any active gem in game, as far as I know. And this one was, and yeah, like, so gloves cost me 10 KS. This one cost me 22 KS, and it has increased reservation efficiency that goes up to 15%. It has minus reduced attributes, which is very good. It has some all elemental resistance and all attributes. So it basically covers everything and gives your main skill gem +3 to levels. If I was crit build, I don't know if I would have used it, but I'm not a crit build. There are no better amulets for this build in general, especially in terms of damage output. So in terms of damage output and the convenience of having increased reservation efficiency, This one is just, it's blasting. And you don't need to, yeah, you can get Essence Infusion if you have troubles with Energy Shield. If you don't, then definitely go for a, where is it? Then definitely go for Elemental Focus. It's very cheap, so it's like, it's Azure, some of the worst ones, and Amber Oils. So it will cost you 3-4 chaos, and it will give you, this one gives you most damage out of all the talents with the low price. So it's low price, it gives you increase, and it gives you increased effect of non-damaging elements, which is both chill and shock. And shock gives us damage. Chill is just good for you to have additional slowing to the enemies, and shock will give you increased damage taken by enemy. And duration, we don't really care about it, but still it is very, very powerful. Otherwise, you can get, in terms of anointments, either Charisma for more mana reservation efficiency, and then skip this one, or some life ones, maybe some Energy Shield if you want, maybe some armor with life, like Juggernaut will be hella good, or in terms of pure DPS output, Fervor +1 to any +1 to maximum frenzy charges will be probably one of the best ones. But it's like the difference between Elemental Focus and +1 to maximum frenzy charges is so small, and the cost is so big in terms of difference, because one golden oil costs 140 chaos, and you don't really need it. Okay, so yeah, this one here. Then we are going for rings, Circles of Anguish, both with the same modifiers. Increased fire damage while affected by Herald of Ash, and Herald of Ash has increased buff effect. The main modifier here is Herald of Ash has increased buff effect. Increased fire damage is good, but it's not essential. If you want to, you can get, especially if you have Dawnbreaker, you can get here +1 to maximum fire damage resistances on both of them, and it will give you additional survivability, because you will convert portions of your other types of damage received in fire damage, and you will have higher maximum fire damage resistance, which will be very, very neat. But otherwise, for maximum damage output, these two are very good. In terms of synthesized modifiers, any are, like 10%, 12% to global fizz damage. It's good, but it doesn't really, and they weren't pricey. These ones were still something close to 30 KSs both. This one a bit more, because it had flat cold damage. You can get either adds cold damage or adds some lesser amount of cold damage per frenzy charge, and we will have frenzy charges constantly, and this way you will proc your frenzy, your chills. If you're looking just to replicate my own build here, my own character. So otherwise they are quite, they give you some flat fire damage, but it's otherwise, so Herald of Ash having increased buff effect, that's why we're getting these. They definitely give you a bunch of damage, but you sacrifice tons of defenses by not having here resistances, not having here life again, and having to have some resistances and other items. Now with our belt Magnate, I've already talked about it. It gives you some strength, which can be good if you're lacking strength. It gives you all elemental resistances, which is nice. Flask charges gained, nice. And chance to deal double damage is the main part here, why I was getting here, because I wanted more damage. If you want more survivability and not to get one shot, just get yourself rare Stygian Vice with a bunch of health and resistances, and you may got some cast speed while flask effect or some other shit like that. But mainly this 10% chance to deal double damage, it's like 700 800 k DPS, which is good and all whenever you have 16 million. It's like sizable portion of your DPS, but it's nothing like it. Without it you can't leave, or defenses are maybe way better here. And then Conjurer boots, so our boots with as you can see here, mods on influence mods on it, they're bad. They're just random ones Chaos Res does at least something. The other one just trash. Otherwise, it has some life, some maximum movement speed. Yeah, movement speed definitely get here because you're gonna feel clunky and slow without 30% at least. It has some dexterity that you need, definitely. Life, and yeah, covers up a little bit of resistances, but these boots are pretty bad. They are pretty bad. They cost like 5Ks. Magnate cost 10Ks or 8 or 15, I can't remember, but nothing more than 20 tops. Now for the helmet, 4 or 5Ks helmet. With the enchant, it cost me 30, but it was the last one. I didn't see any other consecrated ground for Purifying Flame deal applies increased damage. Other increases to damage of Purifying Flame, so other enchants, they're not really worth it. They cost even more on Eye of Malice, so damage increase costed like 120 chaos, and it's worse than this one. And this one cost like 30 chaos. Without the enchant, it costs 4 or 5 chaos, the Eye of Malice of itself, even with good rolls. Rolls are on resistances anyways, and on energy shield that you, yeah. Anyway, so it gives you a bit of resistances. It gives you nearby enemies have increased fire and cold resistances. And our enemies are gonna have minus resistances. And this one will multiply it. This one will apply this increase to that minus resistance. That's why we're going so hard on minusing the res of enemies. That's why we do have 2 curses. We do have our exposures. We do have increases to exposure. We do have -5 to resistance here. We do have -10 to resistance from combustion. So basically just a lot of minus to resistance. Enemies will constantly have minus res, and this one will amplify it. It gives us a significant portion of damage. You can't live without it. I've dropped it in SSF, to be honest. It costs not a lot, 4 chaos for holy moly. It gives you pretty good energy shield stats, and if you're going for Grace, evasion rating will be quite handy as well. Otherwise, 70% resist seems kinda good to me, and especially with auto-inflicting 2 exposures, especially if you will have hatred, maybe you want to get some cold damage action here, you will auto-inflict cold res as well, which will be very, very nice to you because, yeah, your Mastermind of Discord will go there then, and your ally weaknesses are for all resistances, so your cold damage basically, if you want to not only ramp up the fire damage, but both fire damage or just like fire and cold, or you're going full elemental resistance and most of your damage is fire and cold, then this one will be even handier because you have 2 auto exposure sources in one item. Otherwise, it's not necessary, but it is, anyways, it's pretty good in all stats. And the nearby enemies is very, very powerful. On rare items, you can get nearby enemies have -10 or -15 to resistances. It probably wouldn't be as powerful as this one, but otherwise you can get, on rare items, you can get both life, you can get just armor, any other mana reservation efficiency, you can get, again, enchants on those items. Yeah, so definitely you can swap it out if you want, and you wouldn't lose as much damage. Did I went through all items here? Yes. Okay, so now flasks. The flasks, Grenade flask, this one is from, it's level 42 flask. It's from my SSF still. It gives you, yeah, we need armor, cast speed, pretty good. Increases to armor would have been better. Divine Life Flask with immunity to corrupted blood and bleeding for sure. Instant one I wouldn't recommend. You probably need a healing one because you're either gonna get one shot or you would want to heal up way more than 700 life that you would have get from instant one. Then Taste of Haste. It is very good potion. It is a very good flask that costs something like I can't remember, 30, 40, 50 chaos. So it's quite pricey. And it's probably the least thing that you need on this build. It gives us gain 12% face damage as extra cold damage, which is very good. And again, it stacks pretty well because we do inflict exposures, we do have -2 resistance to cold as well, and it 10%, 10 to 15% of fizz damage from hits taken as cold damage, which is a very good defense against fizz damage as well. It lessens your cold damage taken, but yeah, you don't need it It's just an additional defense one, especially. But if you will have big amounts of fizz damage reduction, if you will have Dawnbreaker, and you will handle fizz damage way better than this character does, you will benefit from this flask even more. So yeah, just defense-wise, it will be so good. Then we're using Rotgut, which is basically a Quicksilver flask and a Silver flask in 2-in-1. We are constantly generating frenzy charges. Whenever this one uses itself, it will consume your frenzy charges and gain you onslaught for 9 seconds, for 3 seconds per frenzy charge. Or if you have 4, then for 12 seconds. And yeah, this one just gives you two flasks in one. Yes, you cannot get all the modifiers on them, but still pretty good, more than good, in my opinion, because otherwise Quicksilver one, it takes place. You still need that movement speed, especially for clearing. So Rotgut is very good, 1 chaos. And Bottled Faith, which was probably, again, this, yeah, it was, I can't really remember which one was like pricier, the Taste of Hate or Bottled Faith. Probably Bottled Faith. So this one is quite high. I was buying it because I was planning to use it on other builds as well. That's why I've bought it, and that's why I've decided that yeah, I will let myself buy it, even if for this build that I want to be lower in terms of costs. So critical strike chance doesn't do us anything. The main thing is consecrated ground created during this effect applies percentage increased damage taken to enemies. This one gives massive damage, and just Sulfur Flask baseline gives us pretty good as well. Tripled radius for consecrated ground, we don't need it. It is gonna be gigantic anyways from our skill. Yeah, so basically just regular Sulfur Flask will work. And Battle Faith, you don't really need it, and you can get here Aziri's Promise that will give you a bunch of damage, and it will give you Chaos Res. It will give you Chaos Res, and it will give you some life leech if you don't have leech first. It is 1 chaos, and you don't really need Battle Faith at all. It's just an additional damage multiplier on top that will make life a bit easier. And that's it. That's it with this character. Yeah, that's it with this character. I'm gonna turn the PoB now for a little bit again. So it's more than 1 freaking hour. Okay, I've talked about almost everything. Oh no, I probably didn't really talk about almost anything. Okay, let's go to PoB. So here, just a rare chest piece. Eye of Malice is very cheap. Without it, you can use rare thing again. You will have higher defenses, lower damage. Here, Dawnbreaker or regular armor shield, or just a shield with. If you don't have any damage modifiers on the energy shield basis, just get +1 to level of Fizz or Fire. Otherwise, all the other mods, you don't really care about them that much. This one gives you most of the damage. If you don't want to get this one, then just go for high energy shield one with some increases to fire or spell damage. Circles of Anguish give us a bunch of damage, but you don't really need them, and they're quite cheap. Replica Dragon's Flank's Flight is non-farmable in SSF. But you can get here many others, other amulets that are gonna be very powerful, and this one is cheap as well, so you don't really need to change it. It's not like it costs divines or stuff. Magnate is probably the thing that I would have changed. So basically, the lowest part of my itemization is flawed. The boots, the gloves, and Magnate is the things that you probably want to change for more armor, more life, and Abyssal Jewel socket. Yeah, and your weapon will be the thing that really gives you a bunch of it. So most of the damage you get from the sockets, from Replica Dragon's Fang's Flight, and from Scepter, from your weapon. You can use Wand, you can use a Dagger, but Daggers, they give you crit, we don't really need crit, so Wand or Scepters are preferable. And that's how you can roll with this build. There's nothing here that requires you to have. There is nothing build defined. It's all just damage. It's all just damage, and to be honest, quite often it's damage with price of your survivability. If you want more content like this, there will be a bunch of different guides with showcases, with gameplay, and with full PoB dives and stuff on this channel. Subscribe to the channel if you'd like the content like this. Hope you're having a good time. Purifying Flame is great skill, but in order to ramp its damage, you need to sacrifice a bunch of your defenses, quite sadly. Bye.